Hi everyone, I'm Akanshi and I'll be moderating the session today. I hope everyone enjoyed the session and we have a few questions which the people watching have asked our speakers. So let's move on. So the first question is for Mayuri. So what are the tips you would like to share for folks getting started with Android? Over to you, Mayuri.
Thanks for the question. Glad to know that you want to start on Android and welcome to the community. You can start with developer.android.com. There are tons of resources on that website to get started. Depending on your choice, if you like videos, there are lots of videos available on Android Developers YouTube channel or Udacity courses. If you like to read, there are lots of articles and blog posts available on the official Medium channels. Apart from that, the Android community is huge and it has tons of resources on every other concept that is out there. I would suggest try doing a lot of projects using code labs and open source it to get collaborations from other developers as well. Happy coding.
Thank you so much, Mayuri. And moving on, I have the next question for Pooja. Usually, while creating a page, it is not possible to create the page for each and every device specifically. So, will there be any grouping according to the size of the devices or something like that?
Hi, Akanshi, thank you for the question, and thank you to PB Varam for the very interesting question, because this is pretty important when you are creating an application. The idea of knowing when to create reusable widgets and when not to. So here, definitely the emphasis is on reusability, and you should not be creating widgets according to the pages according to the size of devices. As I spoke on in my talk, you should create widgets which are responsive in terms of the device height and width, and whenever, if the device is changing, it's like if you're going from device to platform to web platform, it will automatically readjust the widget by itself. Definitely there are times when the design is slightly different for web platform and slightly different for a phone platform, but it won't be a complete huge redesign for web platform at all. Then that is not responsive app coming to web. That's just a different website and a different phone device. So if you are creating a phone device that acts responsive for web, you need to just readjust some of your elements in a way, using the layout builder, using the constraints format, where you can just see that, okay, if constraints is less than or more than xyz width, then just add a little bit of interaction, or add a little bit of behavior to it. Otherwise, don't. So the same widget, if it knows its constraints, can act differently for different widget, for different platforms. So definitely create separate widgets for each of your section, and give each of them a responsiveness to it, using the widgets that can, stretch and fold according to the size. So that's what I would suggest to create better responsive apps.
Totally makes sense. Thank you so much, Pooja, for the answer. So my next question is for Nishu. Is there any way we can use Angular for mobile apps just like we have React Native?
Okay, that's interesting. Thanks for the question, Aditi. So now it depends. So if you're planning to build a native application with Angular, you can go for native script, which is like widely used for Angular applications, and you can also go for Ionic. I'll share the links in the in the live chat section, so that you can learn native script or Ionic. However, if you feel that there's a learning curve in native script or Ionic, and it's not just Angular that you have to use there, in that case you can also go for progressive web apps. Now that's really helpful for you to just build the regular web application, but use it as a mobile app as well. The concept of headless browser comes there. And the main part there is that you have to build your web application being very careful about the responsiveness there. So that's all about when you're dealing with progressive web apps. It will also include service workers, offline rendering of your application. So that's pretty interesting. However, to your question, native script or Ionic is the are the things that you can use for your mobile development with Angular. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nishu. And my next question is for Nivita. What will be the best approach to learn JavaScript from basic and master it and then learn framework? Or learn some important concept of JavaScript and jump quickly to learn framework?
So thanks, Sahil, for asking this question. And this is the same question, to be frank, which I had when I started, learning frameworks. So I would suggest that, from my experience, like knowing the basics of JavaScript features like ES6 and everything will be suffice to start on working with the framework. But in order to become an intermediate or an expert level, knowing the JavaScript in depth will always help us to debug better and get the working of the framework, because the both React, Angular, everything, every other framework is basically on JavaScript, written on JavaScript. So becoming an expert on JavaScript is definitely a good choice to go. And to answer your question, definitely the basics of JavaScript would be suffice to start working on a framework, but just keep learning every day.
Great. Thank you so much, Nivita. And my next question is for Shruti. Can you please explain latitude line at line number 61 in app.components.ts? All right, we have an image question.
Thank you, Akanshi, and thank you for the question. I would definitely like to answer this question. So, first of all, it would be not the case in the real projects. As I don't have any database, and I have to set up some data for multiple markers, and I have to and I have some latitude and longitudes. Okay, so when I click on the button, markers will be plotted from that data. So there are two ways we can have data for latitude and longitude. First is we can have two-dimensional array, and then we can store latitude and longitude for the places in that. And second is this that I have implemented. I have calculated latitude and longitude using the math.random. Okay, then if we go to the line number 61, first I've used these dot center dot let. Okay, so what is the center? Center is the object of the type google.maps.let long literal. It contains the latitude and longitude of the current location. Okay, so if we talk about latitude, then this dot center dot let contains the latitude of the current location, and after that that is the formula that gives us some random value, and that will be added to the these dot center dot let, and for entire equation we'll get some random latitude, and similarly for longitude, so that we can have multiple latitudes and longitudes, and using this way we can plot multiple markers on the map. I hope this makes sense. Thank you, Akanshi. Over to
Great.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so another question is, when should one start thinking about micro interactions when designing the app or while developing? This is a very interesting question. I think it's very important that when the app is still in the designing phase, we come up with the micro interactions. That is mainly because when you're designing, you'll be able to figure out how each component should look on each screen, and it will be very easy for the developer to plan ahead and then develop. Because or when I from a personal experience, I was working on a project where the components and the design was already made, and when I had to add the micro interactions later on, I had to change a lot of things from the code. So it's actually easier for the developer also to plan ahead and move forward with micro interactions. And other than that, if the designer doesn't like how the micro interaction are actually turning up in the application, they can always have a feedback session, multiple feedback sessions in fact, and then the micro interaction can be reworked on. But I think just to sum up, it's better that we plan ahead in the design phase. Thank you. All right, I think that's enough. That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you so much for all the lovely questions. Thanks.